The first thing you felt when you entered a house in Galilee more than 2,000 years ago was not the walls and not the roof. It was the ground beneath your feet, a floor of packed earth, soil mixed with straw and lime, pressed down again and again by bare feet until it became hard, smooth, and enduring. At dawn, it was cold. By midday, it held the sun's warmth, and when night fell, it slowly released that warmth back into the room, as if remembering the day that had passed. To modern eyes, it looks like poverty, something unfinished, something temporary. But to the people who lived there, this floor was not a sign of misery. It was a decision, a solution, a way to survive. Just beyond the doorway, the floor dropped slightly. Only a few inches. That lower space did not belong to people. It belonged to the animals. A goat. A few sheep. Sometimes an old donkey. At night, their breathing filled the darkness. The soft sound of chewing echoed gently through the house, and their body heat rose slowly upward, warming the place where the family slept. This was not improvisation. It was wisdom learned over generations. In the cold winters of Galilee, those few inches of difference could mean waking up healthy in the morning, or not waking up at all. Above that lower level was the family's space. Not many rooms, not corridors, just one continuous area. Everything happened there. Meals were eaten there. Work was done there. Children were taught there. Prayer was whispered there. And when night came, everyone slept there. It was on this floor that a child named Jesus crawled. It was here that he fell, stood up, and tried again. Here, he watched Joseph sit cross-legged on the ground, tools scattered nearby, hands moving with quiet precision. Here, Mary kneaded dough, lit the fire, and ordered life with small, repeated gestures that never drew attention to themselves, but never failed. This floor demanded attention. One object left in the wrong place could cut a bare foot in the dark. There was no room for disorder, no space for excess. The house did not belong to one person. It belonged to the family. Perhaps that is why, years later, when Jesus spoke about foundations, about houses that stood firm or collapsed, no one found it strange. They understood with their bodies. They knew that everything began at ground level. The house itself educated its people, not with words, but with daily discipline. There were no interior walls, but there was order. There was almost no furniture, but there was structure. Children learned early where they could step, what they could touch, and when silence was required. Authority did not come from occupying space. It came from carrying responsibility. And for this fragile order to endure, the walls had to do more than simply stand. The walls were thick, nearly 1/2 meter in places, irregular stones bound together with mud and lime. But hidden inside those walls was an entire system of life. From the very beginning of construction, builders left niches in the stone, not for decoration, but for survival. High up, out of a child's reach, were the most precious things. Small savings, important documents, sometimes sacred scrolls, wrapped carefully in cloth. Lower down were oil lamps, bowls, knives, the tools of daily use. Near the floor were heavier objects, baskets, large jars, work tools. Nothing was random. Everyone knew where everything belonged. During the day, the walls absorbed the sun's heat. At night, they released it slowly. In summer, they shielded the family from the worst of the heat. Protecting what mattered was not a metaphor. It was a daily task. Building wisely was not philosophy. It was life or death. And when Jesus later spoke of vigilance, of guarding what is entrusted to you, he was speaking from lived experience. But above those solid walls, there was another space, often forgotten by modern readers. To understand it, you had to look up. To reach the roof, you went outside. The stairs clung to the wall, narrow, steep, worn smooth by years of use. Children learned to climb them early. Going up and down became as natural as crossing the threshold. At the top, the space opened wide, flat, exposed to the sky. The roof was not simply a cover, it was an extension of the home. Thick wooden beams ran from wall to wall. Across them were woven branches. Above that, layers of straw and mud mixed with lime were pressed down until the surface became firm and waterproof. This roof could carry people. When cracks appeared, the dried mud was removed, new layers were applied, and the sun did the rest. Nothing was so permanent that it could not be repaired. During the day, the roof was alive. Grain was spread out to dry. Dates and figs lay in the sun. Tools were repaired. Clothes were aired. Children played under watchful eyes. Adults worked nearby. At night, especially in summer, entire families slept there. The heat of the day faded. The breeze moved freely. The stars became the ceiling. It was the highest place in the house and the quietest. Here, daily life brushed against the spiritual without ceremony. Work and prayer shared the same space. Ordinary moments and divine awareness rested on the same earth. Inside these houses with almost no furniture, life revolved around only 4 essential objects. Nothing more, nothing less. The first was the woven straw mat. Each person had one. In the morning, it was rolled up and leaned against the wall. During the day, it became a seat, a table, a workspace. At night, it returned to the floor and became a bed. One object followed every moment of the day. The second was the large ceramic jar. These were not scattered around the house. They were partially buried in the ground. Each jar had a purpose: wheat, barley, lentils, oil, water, wine. The earth kept the temperature stable. Food was protected from heat and insects. People walked over these jars without fear. They were part of the invisible structure of the home. The third object was the oil lamp. Small, simple, essential. The house was never completely dark at night. The flame remained lit for safety, so that someone could rise without stumbling, so that accidents did not happen in the darkness. The light was weak, but constant. In a house where everything happened on the floor, complete darkness was dangerous. The fourth object was the brazier, a metal bowl that held the fire. It had no fixed place. In winter, it stayed close. In summer, it was moved away. It was used for cooking, for warmth, for gathering. Simply moving it changed the rhythm of the house. With only these 4 objects, an entire family lived, worked, ate, and rested. Nothing was excessive. Nothing was missing. But simplicity did not mean equality. From the outside, many houses looked the same. The same stone walls, the same flat roofs, the same size. Inside, small differences meant everything. The quality of the mortar mattered. Families with resources used carefully prepared lime and fine sand. Their walls resisted winter rain. Poorer families relied on simple mud mixed with straw. Over time, water seeped in. Mold appeared. cold settled into the walls. The wood of the roof made a difference. Cedar or oak beams lasted generations. Reused or green wood cracked and sagged. On rainy nights, sleep meant listening to water drip and hoping the roof would survive one more season. This was not discomfort, it was danger. The jars told another story. Some were thick, well-fired, sealed tightly. They preserved grain for years. Others cracked easily. Insects entered. Entire reserves were lost. Even the oil varied. Pure oil burned clean and steady. Poor oil filled the room with smoke, irritated eyes, and thickened the air. In poorer houses, smoke was always present. But the cruelest difference was in reserves. Some families stored food for years. Others survived with only a few months' supply. A drought, a disease, an unexpected tax, and everything was gone. Utensils were sold first, then tools, then hope. Poverty did not arrive suddenly. It crept in, like dampness through poorly built walls. When Jesus spoke of the rich man feasting while the poor man waited for crumbs, his listeners did not imagine a distant story. They had seen those houses. They had lived inside them. These were not religious abstractions. They were social realities. And when we step inside these houses today, faith stops being theoretical. It has the smell of earth, the warmth of shared breath, the flicker of a small flame in the dark. We discover that Jesus did not teach from palaces, but from homes where every detail meant security or loss, abundance or fear. Understanding this world changes how we read the Gospels. It reveals a Christ deeply rooted in human life, one who knew labor, shared space, and fragile existence. And perhaps that is why his words still endure. Because they were born from real floors, real walls, and real nights where survival depended on wisdom, restraint, and trust. And we learn again that what is essential has always fit into little space, and that true wealth was never in the walls, but in the heart.